Welcome back to Lovin Daily. With me now is Christina Lejman, Secretary of the Arno Gessery Foundation, a Maltese NGO which runs an orphanage in Madagascar. Christina, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Can you explain to people what your NGO does and the work it does in Madagascar?
Yes, of course. So we're a Maltese registered NGO with the Voluntary Organisations Commission. We've been functioning since 2012, and our main project is a residential crisis centre for children. So we house around 30 children, all of whom have either been severely abused, abandoned, neglected, and we specialise in malnutrition refeeding. So we have 30 children that live with us, and then we have satellite projects in the community, such as we support women in the local prison, and we also do residential care for children in the prison, so they can live with us instead of having to live with their mothers in prison. The refeeding programme is in partnership with the hospitals. We run a summer school for over 100 children from our community, so that children that have to help during like harvest time and can't attend school, then can catch up during the summer and then graduate to the next school year. We also run clinics out of our house. So the heart of the project is this crisis centre where we keep mid to long-term residential care children.
And how bad is it? I mean, when you're talking about malnutrition and helping them, ease out of malnutrition, what's the process exactly? It's not just, you can't just feed them, right?
No, absolutely not. So Madagascar has a huge problem with malnutrition. It's actually the 4th highest rate in the world. Over half of Malagasy children suffer from malnutrition, and the effects are long-term and pretty savage. It depends on the severity of the malnutrition, but you need a specialist team and often inpatient care. And in Madagascar, the government can't provide that. So we have, my stepfather was a pediatrician. He designed the program. We do refeeding very, very slowly and monitor the children throughout the process. And we work with the families to then try and reintegrate the children into the family so that they can continue the recovery process themselves. But the recovery process can take up to 3 or 4 years for a child that's been severely malnourished.
Wow, okay. And obviously, like most people around the world, you said that your orphanage has been impacted by the impact of COVID-19.
Absolutely.
How has this been for you?
Yeah, it's been really difficult this year. There's been 3 main issues for us, and I think for a lot of other charities as well, not just us. The funding decreased significantly when the pandemic hit. People weren't sure what was happening with their finances. We rely on private donations like a lot of other NGOs, and a lot of the big grants were suspended for 2020, and we're not sure if they'll be reinstated for 2021. So the money went down, but at the same time the demand for our services went through the roof because communities were more vulnerable, children were more vulnerable, and we were being called on to do more work in the community and take more children on. In addition to which, we take care of vulnerable children. So we have a residential facility with kids, but a lot of our children are unwell, so they're immunosuppressed. We have HIV positive children, children that suffer from sickle cell anemia, children that are in the middle of their malnutrition refeeding, and so we have to be extra careful, which has led to an increase in expenses because our staff can no longer use public transport. We have to have private transport to get them in and out of the house, increased medical care, sanitation, and so on. It's also isolated our children quite a lot because they're not able to go to school. We're not able to let them out of the facility to play with friends. So it's also had a social impact on our kids because they're more isolated.
And are the kids aware about how dire the situation is?
We try not to scare them, but at the same time it's really important that they understand the importance of sanitation and hygiene, and that they also understand why we've put certain restrictions in place. We have a full-time nurse, which is sponsored, and he's in charge of explaining to the children at the different ages the importance of washing your hands, maintaining social distance, wearing masks when you're not within our bubble. So they understand parts of it, but we're trying not to sort of scare them too much.
Yes, and you recently launched a petition where you're asking the Maltese public for help, which and you made it quite clear that if this help doesn't arrive, the orphanage will have to close down, and these children will have to be sent back.
Yes,
quite a long way away, and that's
Yeah, so one of the main things that we try and do, the reason we opened in this region, is that we want to rehabilitate families and send children home in the long term. And we've done that with over 50 children. But if we were to close, there are no other residential facilities in our area, and those children would be sent over 1,500 kilometers away to centers in the capital. And that would make family rehabilitation and reunification almost impossible, because the kids get lost in the system and transport in Madagascar is very difficult. So we really need, this is our campaign that a very close friend and supporter set up for us. The point of this is to stabilize us for the next 3 or 4 months, so that we can establish how COVID is going to affect us in 2021 and set up some other measures so that we can have longer term stability. But we really need help to get through this, we're calling it like a crisis period, so that we can maintain those activities and work with the government in Madagascar to make sure that we can stabilize the project.
Have you received any kind of feedback in Malta so far?
Yes, our feedback's always positive. I mean, Malta is our biggest supporter. All our friends and family help out. I know people sometimes find it a little bit difficult to understand why they should donate to a charity that works overseas instead of a charity that works in Malta. But our argument is always that we can do both. It's super important that we support local charities working with vulnerable Maltese communities, but there is space to help with overseas communities as well. But the response has been very positive. The campaign is running until the end of January. We've made about €3,500 of the 20 that we need so far. So there are little rewards on the campaign. You can name a chicken in our sustainable projects. You can buy Christmas presents for the kids. You can pay for healthcare, sponsor malnutrition refeeding. So I would encourage people to have a look at what we do. You can reach out to us on Facebook if anyone has any questions at all. It's me or my mum that will answer your Facebook messages. So yeah.
It's you and your mother, right, who run this place?
Yes, my mum, stepfather and I sort of set it up with friends and family, and he passed away sadly. So now it's my mum and I, and all our friends and family get roped into helping us.
So yes, that's a pretty great initiative, and as you said, they can reach out to you on your Facebook page.
Yes.
This is the Ono Gezri Foundation.
Yes.
Thank you very much for having us. That's all for today. Just a quick reminder that today's episode was brought to you by eCabs, which is running a massive competition at the moment. Details can be found on Lovin Malta's Facebook page, but there are basically prizes worth €20,000 up for grabs. And that's all today, and make sure you follow lovinmalta.com for all the latest updates, and have a day full of loving.